Jinho was drinking his morning coffee when the sky turned black. He stood on the balcony of his small apartment in Busan, watching the sun disappear behind something huge and metal. The coffee cup fell from his hands and broke on the concrete floor. Above the city, a massive ship hung in the air like a dark mountain. It was bigger than anything Jinho had ever seen. The ship was so large that it covered half the sky. Other ships floated around it, smaller but still enormous. They made no sound, just hung there like sleeping giants. Jinho grabbed his phone and called his sister. "So Young, are you seeing this?" "I'm in Seoul," So Young said. Her voice was tight with fear. "They're here too. The whole sky is covered. The news says they're everywhere, Tokyo, Sydney, London. Jinho, what do we do?" Before Jinho could answer, the ships began to glow. Bright red light gathered at the bottom of each vessel. The air started to hum with energy. Jinho felt his skin tingle. "Get inside," So Young shouted through the phone. "Get underground now." Jinho ran back into his apartment, but it was too late. The red light turned into fire that fell from the sky like rain. It hit the buildings across the street first. The concrete and steel melted like ice cream in summer. The people inside didn't even have time to scream. The fire swept across the city in waves. Jinho watched from his window as his neighborhood disappeared. The grocery store where he bought food every day was gone. The park where children played was now a pool of melted metal and glass. The hospital where his mother worked last year was just smoke and flames. High above Earth, Admiral Dongsu watched the attack from Luna Station. He was old for a military man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years protecting Earth from threats that might come from space. Now that threat was here and he could do nothing to stop it. "Sir, they're hitting every major city on the planet," reported his aide. "The weapons are some kind of plasma fire. They're melting everything they touch." Dongsu looked at the screen showing cities burning on every continent. Seoul was a lake of fire. Tokyo was gone. New York had vanished under clouds of steam and smoke. Millions of people were dying, and Earth's space fleet was too far away to help. "Send the order to all ships," Dongsu said. "Full speed to Earth, launch everything we have." "Sir, we only have 12 ships." "They have hundreds." "I don't care. We fight." Back on Earth, Jinho crawled through the ruins of his city. The air burned his lungs. Everything was hot and sharp. Pieces of melted building cut his hands as he climbed over them. He was looking for other survivors, calling out names, but mostly he heard only silence. He found an old man trapped under a fallen wall. Together they managed to free the man's leg. The old man's name was Byung-ho, and he used to sell fish in the market. "Why are they doing this?" Byung-ho asked as they helped each other walk through the smoking ruins. "I don't know," Jinho said. "Maybe they want our planet. Maybe they just want us dead." They found more people hiding in the subway tunnels. The underground was safer from the fire that kept falling from the sky. A woman named Hae-won had been a teacher before the attack. She was taking care of a group of children whose parents were missing. "The radio says they sent a message," Hae-won told Jinho. "The same message to every country. They said submit or burn." Jinho looked at the children. They were dirty and scared but alive. What did we say back? Nothing yet. The government buildings are all gone. No one knows who's in charge anymore. Meanwhile, Captain So Young was flying her transport ship low over what used to be the Korean countryside. She was trying to rescue people from the burning cities. Her ship was small and fast, built for moving supplies between space stations. Now it was a rescue boat in an ocean of fire. "Control, this is Transport 7, she said into her radio. "I have 50 civilians on board." "Where should I take them?" "Transport 7. All landing zones in Korea are compromised." "Try Japan," So Young checked her fuel. She didn't have enough to reach Japan with 50 people on board. She would have to find somewhere closer. Below her, she saw people waving from the roof of a partially destroyed building. She brought her ship down carefully, avoiding the twisted metal and broken glass. 20 more people climbed aboard, including her brother Taemin. Taemin was a scientist who studied alien life. Not that anyone had ever found alien life before today. He was carrying a bag full of strange metal pieces. "I grabbed these from where their weapons hit," he told So Young as they lifted off. "Maybe we can learn something from them." "Learn what?" "How to die better. How to fight back." The alien ship stayed in the sky for 3 days, burning every major city on Earth. They didn't land. They didn't send soldiers. They just burned everything and waited. On the 4th day, they sent another message. This time it was longer. It came in every language on Earth, spoken by voices that sounded almost human but not quite right. People of Earth, the message said, your military has been destroyed. Your leaders are dead. Your cities are ash. You have one choice now. Serve us or join your cities in the fire. You have one day to decide. Admiral Dongsu had reached Earth with his small fleet, but the alien ships were too powerful. He lost 8 ships in the first battle. The alien weapons cut through Earth's strongest shields like they were made of paper. Sir, his communications officer said, Earth government is asking for your surrender. Dongsu looked at the burning planet below. Half of humanity was already dead. The other half was hiding underground or in the ruins of their cities. The smart thing to do was surrender. Save who they could save. Send a message to all surviving ships, Dongsu said. We're leaving Earth orbit. Set course for the asteroid belt. Sir, that's deserting. No, Dongsu said. That's surviving. We can't help Earth by dying here too. His 4 remaining ships turned away from Earth and headed into deep space. Behind them, the planet that had been humanity's home for thousands of years became a prison. The alien ships landed the next day, not in the cities they had burned, but in open fields and empty deserts. Huge machines began building structures that looked like factories. The surviving humans were rounded up and put to work. The age of human freedom was over. But in the asteroid belt, Admiral Dongsu was already making plans. And in the ruins of Earth cities, people like Jin Ho and Hai Wan were learning to hide, to fight, and to hope. The war was just beginning. 5 years had passed since the sky burned. Jin Ho barely looked human anymore. Metal wires ran under his skin, connecting to ports behind his ears. His left eye glowed blue in the dark. Half of his right arm was machine now, stronger than the flesh it replaced. He crouched in the ruins of what used to be Seoul Station, watching an alien patrol walk past. The creatures looked like giant insects, but they walked on 2 legs and carried weapons that hummed with energy. Their masters called them Vorthak, and they had turned Earth into a giant mining operation. Jinho's arm opened up, revealing tools and weapons built into the metal. He had learned to make these changes to himself over the years, using pieces of alien technology he stole from their machines. Each upgrade hurt more than the last, but it also made him stronger, faster, better at killing the things that had destroyed his world. The patrol moved on. Jinho activated his radio, speaking in whispers. Mi Young, this is Ghost. Patrol is clear. Send the trucks. Mi Young sat in a hidden room 50 feet underground, surrounded by screens and maps. She had been a city planner before the invasion, designing parks and roads for people who were now dead or enslaved. Now she planned something different, how to hurt the aliens who had taken everything. Copy that, Ghost. Truck 1, you're clear to move. Above ground, a convoy of human vehicles started moving. They looked like normal transport trucks, but they were carrying something special: food, medicine, and weapons for the resistance cells hiding all across what used to be South Korea. The Vorthak had divided Earth into mining zones. Huge machines dug up entire mountains looking for rare metals they needed for their ships. Humans were forced to work in the mines, digging until they died from the poisoned air or the backbreaking labor. But not all humans had been caught. Thousands lived in the spaces between, in abandoned subway tunnels, in the ruins of destroyed buildings, in caves and sewers and forgotten places. They called themselves the Underground, and Mi Young was their leader in this part of Asia. Truck 1 to control, came a voice over the radio. We've got a problem. Checkpoint ahead that wasn't there yesterday. Mi Young looked at her maps. The aliens changed their patrol routes constantly, trying to catch smugglers like her people. Can you go around? Negative. It's right across the only bridge that's still standing. Jinho was already moving. I'm closest to your position. Give me 2 minutes. He ran through the ruins with inhuman speed, his metal leg pushing him faster than any normal person could go. The alien checkpoint had 2 guards and a scanning device that could see inside vehicles. Jinho's plan was simple. He walked straight up to the guards like he belonged there. The first guard turned toward him, raising its weapon. Jinho's arm moved faster than the eye could follow. Metal fingers grabbed the guard's throat and squeezed until something cracked. The second guard had time to shout before Jinho's other hand, the one that was still mostly human, drove a knife into its head. Checkpoint clear, he whispered into his radio. The trucks rolled past carrying their secret cargo to people who hadn't eaten real food in weeks. Across the ocean, Taman worked in a different kind of hiding place. His laboratory was built inside an old subway tunnel under the ruins of Tokyo. He had spent 5 years studying every piece of alien technology he could find. Today, he was looking at something important. It was a piece of a Vorthak computer, damaged but still partially working. The symbols on its screen were finally starting to make sense. Incredible, he whispered to himself. His assistant, a young woman named Kyung-hee, looked up from her own work. "What did you find?" "They're not conquerors," Taemin said, staring at the alien text scrolling across his screen. "They're refugees." The computer files told a story of a species running from something terrible. The Vorthak homeworld had been consumed by entities they called the Void Devourers, creatures that ate entire planets, leaving nothing behind but empty space. They came here because they had nowhere else to go, Taemin explained. But that's not the important part. "Look at this." He pointed to a section of the alien files that showed star maps. Red dots marked worlds that had been consumed by the Void Devourers. Yellow dots showed worlds where the Vorthak had taken control. They're looking for something specific, not just any planet. They need worlds with intelligent life that has certain brain patterns. They've conquered dozens of species, but they keep moving, keep searching. Searching for what? I think they're looking for someone who can use weapons left behind by an even older species. Someone who can fight the Void Devourers. Kyung-hee felt cold despite the warm air in the tunnel. "You think they found what they were looking for when they found us?" Taemin nodded grimly. "I think humanity might be exactly what they've been searching for." Far out in space, Admiral Dong-Su read Taemin's report on the bridge of his flagship. His small fleet had grown over the years as more Earth ships found them in the asteroid belt. They had maybe 50 vessels now compared to the thousands of Vorthak ships orbiting Earth. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're getting a transmission from the outer system. Something big is coming." Dong-Su turned to the main screen. At first he saw nothing but stars and empty space. Then his sensors picked up something that made his blood freeze. It was a structure artificial and enormous. It looked like a ring made of metal and crystal, easily 1,000 kilometers across. It was old. Older than human civilization, older maybe than life on Earth. "Where did it come from?" Dong-Su asked. "It just appeared, sir. Like it was hidden and something made it visible." "Life signs?" "None that we can detect. But it's broadcasting something. A signal in a language our computers don't recognize." Dong-Su made a decision that would change everything. "Set course for that structure, and send a message to Mi Young on Earth. Tell her we might have found something important." Back on Earth, Mi Young received the Admiral's message in her underground command center. She was planning another raid on a Vorthak supply convoy when the words on her screen made her stop everything. She called Jin Ho immediately. "Ghost, I need you back here. We might have found a way to fight back." Jin Ho was in the middle of helping refugees escape from a labor camp. 50 humans, mostly children and elderly people too weak to work in the mines anymore, waited for him to guide them through the dangerous ruins to safety. "Can it wait? I've got people who will die if I leave them." The Admiral found something in space, something that might be a weapon we can use against them. Jin Ho looked at the frightened faces around him. These people needed him now. But if there was really a chance to strike back at the aliens who had destroyed his world, "Send someone else to get me," he said finally. "I'm not leaving these people." That decision saved his life. An hour later, Vorthak forces attacked Mi Young's command center. Someone had betrayed them. A human who had decided that cooperation was better than resistance. Mi Young escaped, but barely. Half her people were killed or captured. The carefully built network of safe houses and supply routes that had taken years to create was destroyed in a single night. But the attack also revealed something important. The aliens were getting desperate. They were spending more resources hunting the resistance, which meant the raids and sabotage were really hurting them. "We're winning," Mi Young told the survivors as they gathered in a new hiding place deeper underground. "They wouldn't be this afraid of us if we weren't." Jin Ho arrived the next day, guiding his group of refugees to safety. He found Mi Young planning their biggest operation yet, an attack on the central mining facility that processed most of Asia's output. "It's suicide," Jin Ho said, looking at her plans. "Maybe. But if Dong-Su really found a weapon we can use, we need to buy him time to figure out how it works. And the only way to do that is to make the Vorthak think we're just desperate humans making one last attack." Jin Ho's metal eye glowed brighter as he studied the facility's defenses. "What do you need me to do?" "What you do best. Get inside and break things." The attack began at dawn. While Jin Ho and his enhanced abilities infiltrated the facility's core systems, Mi Young led a full assault on its defenses. It looked like a desperate last stand by the human resistance, but it was really something else. A message to every human on Earth that the war wasn't over. And far out in space, Admiral Dong Su's ships approached the ancient ring structure, hoping to find the weapon that could finally turn the tide of humanity's war for survival. Captain So Young felt her ship shake as it approached the massive ring structure. The thing was so big that her entire fleet looked like insects next to it. Strange energy readings came from every section of the ancient station. "Admiral," she said over the radio, "my sensors are picking up atmosphere inside the ring, and artificial gravity. This thing is still working after who knows how many years." Admiral Dongsu sat in his command chair, staring at the alien structure on his main screen. In all his years of military service, he had never seen anything like it. The metal looked different from Vorthak technology, smoother, more elegant, but also somehow older and more powerful. "Take a boarding party inside, Captain. But be careful. We don't know who built this or why." So Young selected her best people for the mission. They wore full spacesuits and carried weapons, though she doubted human guns would be much use against whatever technology could build something this massive. The docking bay they found was clearly designed for ships much larger than anything humans had ever built. Their small transport looked like a toy inside the enormous space. But the docking clamps that grabbed their ship worked perfectly, and the airlock that connected to their hatch fit as if it had been made for human ships. "That's strange," So Young told her team. "It's almost like this place was expecting us." Inside the station, lights came on automatically as they walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered in symbols that looked like writing, but not from any language So Young had ever seen. The air tasted clean and fresh despite the station's obvious age. They had been walking for an hour when they found the central chamber. It was a huge room with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. In the center stood something that looked like a tree made of crystal and metal, with branches that held floating spheres of light. As soon as So Young stepped into the room, the spheres began to pulse and the tree started to hum with energy. Then a voice spoke, not from speakers but from the air itself. "Welcome," the voice said in perfect Korean. Then it repeated the greeting in English, Japanese, Chinese, and dozens of other human languages. "We have been waiting for you." So Young raised her weapon, though she felt foolish pointing a gun at empty air. "Who are you? What do you want?" "We are the memory of the Kethmar," the voice replied. "We are what remains of a civilization that died 65 million years ago. When the Devourers last came to this galaxy, the spheres of light began to show images, planets covered in cities, ships traveling between stars, beings that looked somewhat like humans but taller and more graceful. Then the images changed to show something else. Vast shapes of living darkness consuming entire star systems. The Void Devourers," the voice continued. "They come in cycles, sleeping in the space between galaxies until life becomes advanced enough to wake them. They feed on the energy of consciousness itself. The more intelligent a species, the more they hunger for it." So Young felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. "You're saying they're coming here?" "They are already here, Captain So Young. The species you call Vorthak are their harbingers. They flee ahead of the Devourers, conquering worlds and gathering resources, but also searching for something specific." The images changed again, showing weapons that seemed to bend space itself, devices that could make stars explode or create new forms of matter from nothing. "We built these weapons in our final years," the voice explained, "but we could never use them. The neural interface required to operate them would kill any member of our species instantly. We built them for whoever came after us, whoever might have the right kind of mind to wield power on a cosmic scale. And you think humans can use these weapons?" "We do not think, Captain, we know. Your neural patterns, your brain structure, your way of processing information. You are exactly what these weapons were designed for. But the cost will be terrible." Before So Young could ask what the voice meant, her radio crackled with an urgent message from Admiral Dongsu. "Captain, get back to your ship immediately. Long-range sensors show massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. Something big is coming and it's coming fast." So Young looked at the crystal tree and its floating spheres. "How do we take the weapons with us?" "You do not take them," the voice replied. "The weapons are built into this station. But we can teach you to use them if you are willing to pay the price." "What price?" The neural interface will burn out most human minds in seconds. Only those who have already modified their brains with artificial components might survive the connection, and even they will be changed forever. So Young thought immediately of Jin-Ho back on Earth, with his cybernetic implants and artificial limbs. How long do we have to decide? The Devourers will reach this system in 6 of your months. The Vorthak know this, which is why they are preparing to strip your planet of every useful resource before they flee to the next galaxy. So Young and her team raced back to their ship. As they launched from the station, she could see dark shapes moving in the distance. Huge ships that didn't match Vorthak design. Ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Admiral," she said over the radio, "we need to get back to Earth immediately, and we need to bring Taimin here as soon as possible." Dongsu's voice was grim.
"Why? What did you find?"
"We found a way to fight back, but we're going to need people who understand both alien technology and human biology. And we need someone willing to risk their life on a neural interface that might kill them." Back on Earth, Taimin received the message in his hidden laboratory. The information that So Young transmitted made him check his calculations 3 times before he believed them. "Kyung-hee," he called to his assistant. "Remember what I said about the Vorthak searching for something specific? You said they were looking for someone who could use ancient weapons. I was right. And according to this data, humans are exactly what they were looking for. Our brain patterns, our neural structure, we're compatible with technology that's older than complex life on Earth." Kyung-hee looked at the technical specifications So Young had sent. "But look at these power requirements. The neural interface would need to process more information than the human brain can handle. A normal human brain, yes, but what about an enhanced brain?" Jin-Ho's cybernetic implants let him interface directly with Vorthak technology. Maybe they would also let him survive a connection to these ancient weapons. They sent a coded message to Mi Young's resistance cell. Within hours, Jin-Ho was climbing down into Taimin's laboratory, his metal parts gleaming in the artificial light. "You want me to plug my brain into alien technology that might kill me?" Jin-Ho asked after hearing Taimin's explanation. "Ancient alien technology," Taimin corrected, "from a species that built weapons specifically for minds like yours." Jin-Ho's artificial eye glowed as he processed the information. "What can these weapons do?" "According to the data, they can manipulate matter and energy on a stellar scale. Create or destroy planets, make space itself into a weapon. And the chances I'll survive the interface?" Taimin hesitated. "Unknown. The Kethamar AI said that only enhanced humans might survive, but it didn't give percentages." Jin-Ho was quiet for a long moment. Outside the laboratory, they could hear the sound of Vorthak machines digging deeper into the Earth, strip mining the planet that had once been humanity's home. "How many people die in their minds every day?" Jin-Ho asked. "Thousands," Mi Young said from the entrance to the lab. She had been listening to the entire conversation. "Maybe tens of thousands. And if these void devourers are really coming, everyone dies anyway." Jin-Ho nodded slowly. "Then I guess we don't have much choice. When do we leave for the weapon station?" "We don't," Taimin said. "The station is coming here. Admiral Dongsu is moving it into Earth orbit using the station's own engines. But Jin-Ho, you need to understand, if you connect to those weapons and it works, you might not be human anymore when it's over." Jin-Ho looked at his metal arm, at the wires under his skin, at his glowing artificial eye. "I stopped being fully human years ago. If becoming something else can save what's left of humanity, then that's what I'll do." Above them in space, Admiral Dongsu watched as the ancient ring station slowly moved toward Earth. Its engines were beyond human understanding, bending space to move the massive structure without violating physics. Behind the station, at the edge of the solar system, dark shapes continued to gather. The void devourers were coming, and humanity had 6 months to learn how to use weapons that could either save them or destroy them completely. The final test was about to begin. Jin-Ho screamed as the neural interface connected to his brain. Every wire in his cybernetic implants burned like fire. His artificial eye went completely white, then began showing images that no human had ever seen before. The deep structure of space itself, quantum fields that held matter together, the hidden dimensions where energy became thought. Taimin watched the readouts from his medical scanners, trying to keep Jin-Ho alive as the ancient Kethmar technology rewrote his enhanced nervous system. His brain activity is off the charts. "I'm seeing neural patterns that shouldn't be possible." "Is he going to survive?" Mi Young asked. gripping Jinho's human hand as his body convulsed on the interface chair. I don't know. The machine is teaching him things our brains aren't designed to understand. But his cybernetic parts are adapting, learning to process the information flow. Admiral Dongsu stood nearby, watching humanity's first attempt to use weapons that predated their species by millions of years. Around them, the Kethmar station hummed with power that could reshape solar systems. Suddenly, Jinho's screaming stopped. His eyes opened, both the human one and the artificial one now glowing with the same blue light. When he spoke, his voice had a strange echo to it, as if it was coming from somewhere very far away. I can see everything, he whispered. Every atom in the solar system. Every ship. Every weapon. I can feel the Vorthak fleet orbiting Earth, and the Void Devourers gathering at the system's edge. He sat up slowly, and the air around him began to shimmer. With a thought, he made a piece of metal from the wall flow like water, reshaping itself into a perfect sphere that floated above his palm. It works, Taemin said, staring at the impossible display. Jinho, how do you feel? Different. Like I'm seeing the universe the way it really is for the first time. Jinho looked at his friends with eyes that now seemed to hold starlight, and I can see how to hurt them, how to make them pay for what they did to Earth. The counterattack began 3 days later. Jinho, connected to the station's weapon systems, reached out with his enhanced mind and simply erased a Vorthak patrol ship from existence. One moment it was there. The next moment there was empty space where it had been. The effect on the Vorthak fleet was immediate. Ships that had seemed invincible began retreating from Earth orbit, confused and frightened by weapons they couldn't understand or defend against. But as the human resistance celebrated their first real victory, Admiral Dongsu received disturbing news from his long-range sensors. Sir, the energy signatures from the outer system are accelerating. The Void Devourers are moving faster than the Kethmar AI predicted. How long do we have? Weeks, not months. On the surface of Earth, Mi Young coordinated uprisings in every remaining human settlement. With the Vorthak fleet in chaos, resistance cells that had been hiding for years finally struck back. Mining facilities were destroyed, supply convoys were captured, and enslaved humans began fighting for their freedom. The Vorthak response was brutal. Unable to understand or counter the new human weapons, they began executing prisoners and bombing human settlements indiscriminately. That was when something unexpected happened. A message came to Admiral Dongsu's flagship, broadcast on Vorthak communication frequencies but in perfect human English. Admiral Dongsu of the Human Defense Fleet, this is Emperor Veltar of the Vorthak Empire. I request immediate communication with your leaders. Dongsu was suspicious, but he opened the channel. The face that appeared on his screen looked like a mixture of insect and reptile, with large eyes that seemed surprisingly intelligent. You wish to surrender? Dongsu asked. No, Admiral. I wish to offer alliance. The statement shocked everyone on the bridge. Veltar continued speaking before anyone could respond. My species made a terrible mistake when we attacked your world. We thought you were simply another primitive species to be conquered and used. We did not know you were the ones the ancient prophecies spoke of. What prophecies? The Kethmar left records throughout the galaxy, warnings about the Void Devourers and instructions for whoever came after them. The prophecies spoke of a young species that could wield the ancient weapons, a people who would arise to fight the darkness that consumes worlds. Veltar's image shifted, showing star maps with the approaching Void Devourer fleet. They will be here in 18 of your days. My empire has ships and weapons, but we cannot fight them alone. Together, perhaps we have a chance. Dongsu looked at the tactical display showing hundreds of Vorthak ships still in the system. You enslaved our people. You burned our cities. You killed millions of humans. Yes. And for that, my species deserves whatever punishment you choose to give us. But punishment will not save either of our races from the Devourers. Only cooperation can do that. The debate that followed lasted hours. Some human leaders wanted to reject the alliance and fight both enemies. Others pointed out that humanity needed every possible advantage against the cosmic horror that was approaching. In the end, it was Jinho who made the decision. His consciousness, now expanded by the Kethmar interface, could sense the approaching Devourers in ways that normal minds could not. They're not just ships, he reported from the weapon station. They're living beings made of dark matter, feeding on the life force of entire worlds. I can feel their hunger from here. If we fight them alone, we lose. If we fight them together, we might have a chance. The alliance was formed reluctantly with strict conditions. Vorthak forces would be allowed to help defend the solar system, but they would be under human command. After the battle, if any survived, the Vorthak would help rebuild what they had destroyed on Earth. Emperor Veltar agreed to every condition without argument. "Admiral," he said, "you do not understand how desperate our situation truly is. The Devourers have consumed 17 galaxies. They have destroyed civilizations that spanned millions of years. If your species has found a way to fight them, then we will follow your orders gladly." The combined human-Vorthak fleet prepared for battle as the Void Devourers approached. Jin-Ho worked frantically with the Kethmar weapons, learning to coordinate attacks on a solar system scale. But each use of the weapons burned away more of his human consciousness, replacing it with something vast and alien. "You're losing yourself," Taemin warned him during one of his brief disconnections from the interface. "I can barely recognize you anymore." "I know," Jin-Ho replied, his voice now carrying harmonics that hurt to hear. "But it's the only way. The weapons require a consciousness that can think on cosmic scales. Human minds are too small, too limited. I have to become something bigger." So Young, now commanding a mixed squadron of human and Vorthak ships, received her final briefings from the weapon station. "The Devourers will arrive in 3 waves, Jin-Ho's transformed voice told her. "The first wave will try to establish feeding points in the outer system. If they succeed, they'll drain energy from Jupiter and Saturn to power the main assault. Can you stop them?" "I can try. But Captain, you need to understand. If I use the weapons at full power, the feedback might kill me. And without someone operating the Kethmar technology, humanity will be defenseless." So Young felt cold despite her ship's warm cabin. "Are you saying we only get one shot at this?" "Maybe. That's why the attack has to be perfect. We have to destroy all of them in the first strike, or Earth dies." The Void Devourers arrived like a wave of living darkness, their ships so black they seemed to absorb the light of distant stars. They were massive beyond comprehension, some as large as Earth's moon, others stretching across thousands of kilometers of space. As they approached Jupiter, the gas giant's colors began to fade. The Devourers were already feeding, draining the life energy from the solar system itself. "All ships, this is Admiral Dongsu," came the voice over the fleet communications. "Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for every living thing in the galaxy. Today we find out what humans are really capable of." Jin-Ho's consciousness expanded to fill the weapon station, then stretched out to touch every Kethmar device in the system. He could feel his humanity slipping away completely, replaced by something that could think in dimensions human minds had never imagined. But in the core of his transformed consciousness, one human thought remained clear: protect the people he loved. No matter what it cost him, the battle for the solar system was about to begin. The Void Devourers fell upon Jupiter like living shadows, and the giant planet began to die. Its beautiful bands of colored gas faded to gray as the cosmic horrors drained its energy. The planet's mass actually decreased as matter was converted directly into the dark force that powered the Devourers. Jin-Ho felt every bit of stolen energy through his connection to the Kethmar weapons. His consciousness, now barely human, stretched across the solar system as he prepared humanity's desperate counterattack. "Me Young," he said through the communication system, his voice reaching every human settlement on Earth. "I need every person on the planet to link their minds to the weapon network. It's the only way to generate enough neural power to operate the main weapon." Mi Young stood in the ruins of Seoul, surrounded by the millions of survivors who had crawled out of their hiding places for humanity's last stand. "Jin-Ho, you're asking people to risk their lives. How many will die?" "Most of them," Jin-Ho replied honestly. "The neural feedback will burn out human minds by the millions. But if we don't try this, everyone dies anyway." Emperor Veltar's voice joined the conversation from his flagship. "The same weapon that can save you will also save us. My people volunteer to join the neural link as well. Your species can't handle the connection," Taemin warned from the weapon station. "Your neural patterns are completely different from humans." "Perhaps. But we must try. We owe this to the galaxy, and to your species for the crimes we committed." Admiral Dongsu watched the tactical display as more Void Devourers emerged from dark space. They were everywhere now, massive creatures of living darkness that moved between dimensions, feeding on the quantum energy that held matter together. All ships, begin the attack, Dongsu ordered. Buy Jinho as much time as possible. The combined human Vorthak fleet opened fire on the approaching horrors. Their weapons, plasma cannons, nuclear missiles, energy beams struck the Devourers and simply disappeared, absorbed into the creature's dark matter forms. Captain So Young led her squadron in a desperate attack run against one of the smaller Devourers. "It's like shooting at a shadow," she reported as her weapons passed harmlessly through the creature. "Our attacks aren't even slowing them down." But the fleet's sacrifice wasn't meaningless. The Devourers turned their attention to the attacking ships, giving Jinho precious time to complete the neural link with Earth's population. On the planet's surface, Mi-young felt the connection forming in her mind, a vast network of human consciousness all focused on a single purpose. The sensation was overwhelming, like suddenly being able to hear the thoughts of every person on Earth. "I can feel all of you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face as she experienced the combined hope and fear of humanity's survivors. "We're all connected now." Taemin monitored the neural link from his position near Jinho's interface chair. What he saw in his instruments defied belief. The collective human consciousness was generating more neural energy than the planet's entire electrical grid. "Jinho, you've got the power," he reported. "But the feedback is starting to burn out the volunteer minds. We're losing thousands every second." Through the neural link, Jinho felt each death as a human mind was overwhelmed by the cosmic forces flowing through the weapon network. But he also felt something else, the incredible determination of his species, their willingness to sacrifice everything for a chance at survival. "Firing the main weapon," Jinho announced, his voice now carrying the harmonics of millions of linked minds. The Kethmar weapon system activated with power that made stars look dim. Reality itself bent around the ancient station as Jinho's enhanced consciousness reached out to touch the fundamental forces of the universe. The weapon didn't fire energy or matter, it fired something much more dangerous. It severed the connection between the void devourers and the dark matter dimensions they used for power. The effect was immediate and devastating. The massive creatures that had been feeding on Jupiter suddenly found themselves cut off from their energy source. Their dark matter forms began to collapse, converting back into normal matter that glowed with released energy. "It's working," So Young shouted from her fighter as she watched the nearest devourer transform from a shadow into a brilliant cloud of gas and light. "They're changing into something else." But Jinho's consciousness was paying a terrible price. The neural feedback from channeling cosmic forces was burning away the last traces of his humanity. He could feel his individual identity dissolving into something vast and alien. Through the pain, he realized something incredible. The weapon wasn't just destroying the void devourers, it was transforming them. Their hunger for life energy was being reversed, changed into a creative force that would birth new forms of existence. "Taemin," Jinho said through the neural link, his voice now barely recognizable as human. "The weapon doesn't destroy them. It heals them." The devourers were created by some ancient catastrophe that turned creative forces into destructive ones. We're changing them back to what they were supposed to be. Across the solar system, the transformation continued. Void devourers that had consumed thousands of worlds were becoming something entirely different. Entities of pure creative energy that began seeding space with the building blocks of new life. But the cost was enormous. On Earth, millions of humans collapsed as their minds burned out from the neural strain. Mi-young felt her own consciousness beginning to fray as the weapon network demanded more power than flesh and blood could provide. "We can't maintain this much longer," she gasped through the link. Jinho made his final decision as a being who had once been human. He severed the connection to Earth's population and took the full burden of the weapon into his own transformed consciousness. "Tell everyone thank you," he whispered to Taemin as his body began to glow with released energy. "Tell them they saved the galaxy." The last group of void devourers transformed in a burst of light that could be seen from Earth. Where moments before there had been creatures of cosmic horror, now there were clouds of luminous gas that would birth new star systems. Jinho's body collapsed in the interface chair, his consciousness now so expanded that it could barely remember being human at all. But as Taemin rushed to his side, Jinho managed one last smile with his human face. "Did we win?" he asked weakly. "Yes," Taemin said, tears running down his face. We won. The galaxy is safe. Admiral Dongsu received reports from across the solar system. The void devourers were gone, transformed into forces of creation rather than destruction. Jupiter was slowly regaining its lost mass as the transformed entities began reversing the damage they had caused. Emperor Veltar's message came through clearly. Admiral, my species formally surrenders to human authority. We will spend whatever time we have left helping to rebuild what we destroyed. But the most surprising messages came from deep space. Dozens of alien species that had been hiding from the void devourers for millions of years were emerging from their shelters, all broadcasting the same message. Thank you. So Young landed her fighter on the weapons station and rushed to the medical bay where Jin Ho was being kept alive by machines. He looked almost human again, though his eyes still held depths that spoke of consciousness expanded beyond normal limits. The doctors say you'll live, she told him, but you'll never be completely human again. Jin Ho nodded weakly. I can feel the transformed devourers out there, seeding new worlds with life. In a few million years, this galaxy will be more alive than it's ever been. He paused, struggling to find words. It was worth it. All of it was worth it. On Earth, Mi Young stood among the survivors in the ruins of Seoul. Half of humanity had died in the final neural link, their minds burned out by forces beyond comprehension. But the other half was alive, and the children playing in the rubble would inherit a galaxy where the greatest threat to life had been transformed into its greatest protector. Vorthak workers labored, alongside humans, to rebuild the destroyed cities. Former enemies worked together to heal the wounds left by 5 years of occupation and war. Emperor Veltar himself came to Earth to personally oversee the reconstruction efforts. My species will not leave this system until every human city is rebuilt, he promised Admiral Dongsu. It will take generations, but we will atone for what we did. Taemin established new research centers to study the transformed devourers, working with alien scientists who emerged from hiding across the galaxy. The entities that had once consumed worlds were now creating them, and each new world they birthed showed signs of incredible diversity and potential. As months passed, the solar system became a gathering place for species from across the galaxy. Representatives from civilizations that had hidden for millions of years came to thank humanity and offer their knowledge and friendship. But for Jin Ho, still recovering in the medical bay of the weapons station, the greatest victory was simpler. Through the windows of his room, he could see Earth slowly healing. Green was returning to the continents. The oceans were clearing. And in the rebuilt cities, children of dozens of species played together under skies that would never again be darkened by cosmic horror. The last shot of humanity's war hadn't been fired with weapons of destruction, but with something far more powerful: the willingness to sacrifice everything to transform their greatest